Welcome to this episode of Profess Hers, a podcast about movies, music, history, pop culture, current events, and literature, all discussed through the perspective of women's issues and feminism.
I'm Allegra, and I have never used a recipe from the internet, but I have made many scrapbooks.
And I'm Misty. I can't cook, but I can bake. I actually made Allegra her birthday cake last year.
She did, and it was beautifully decorated as well.
See, I have skills.
She does.
So if you can't tell, what are we talking about today, Allegra?
We're talking about, what do we call it? Lifestyle leading ladies.
Because we like alliteration.
We do. That's a literary device. So 3 women who we think are the leading ladies of lifestyle TV.
Yeah, and the old way to say this, especially maybe in the 80s, was domestic goddess.
Oh, yeah, that was a very popular phrase.
Allegra, are you a domestic goddess?
No. Not at all. No.
That actually went on for like 10 minutes. We had to cut part of it.
Yeah.
It was just her laughing solid for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I really wouldn't say that I am either. But I admire some of what these ladies do.
Oh, yeah, it's great. And as we're going to talk about today, all 3 of them had some positive impact. They're not necessarily wholly positive, but they've all had some great positive impact. And I definitely admire their cooking skills. At least 2 of them have astounding cooking skills.
And one of them knows how to order food and get it to her.
I mean, and all of them.
So should we go ahead and just say who we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, why keep people in suspense any longer?
All right, so today we are discussing 3 ladies who have made domestic service in activities famous through their television careers. So Julia Child,
Martha Stewart,
and Oprah.
So Misty, which person are you most excited
I am
to discuss?
so pumped to talk about Julia Child.
She is.
I think I've been telling everybody in my life about Julia Child for about a week.
I'm looking at the script, and I'll be honest, we're going way back in time here.
Yay, history.
I don't know about that. There's a lot. I might have to cut you off at some point and just
but
be like,
so interesting.
that's enough of that. But I think Julia Child, first of all, number one, let's just be clear, it's Julia Child.
Yes.
Right? No
yes.
S on the end.
No, Julia Child.
I don't know where, but maybe it's just people I know. I just hear her called Julia Childs all the time.
Oh, that's interesting. No.
You ever heard that?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So Julia Child.
Yes.
Because now I'm being possessive. Her life is probably the least
well known.
I mean, everybody knows Oprah's story because she's been very upfront discussing it and talks about it a lot. And she's, of course, wildly famous. Martha Stewart's background, less famous, but, she's still very prominent. So I don't know very much about Julia Child.
Oh, you're about to know so much.
I'm about to know.
And I hope you're excited.
Too much. So we're going to play a clip first, right?
Yes, let's start with the clip.
We want to start.
Because this really gives you a flavor. See that? Flavor?
No.
For Julia Child's
Don't
personality.
do stuff like that. Okay.
I'm going to see if that is flippable. Well, I'm going to try it anyway. When you flip anything, you just have to have the courage of your convictions, particularly if it's sort of a loose mass like this. Well, that didn't go very well. See, when I flipped it, I didn't have the courage to do it the way I should have. But you can always pick it up, and if you're alone in the kitchen, who is going to see? But the only way you learn how to flip things is just to flip them.
So I love that because I think Julia Child is all about courage, the courage of her convictions.
Yeah, and I like when she says the only way to really learn how to flip things is to just flip them. And I'm always afraid of flipping things in the kitchen, but she's right. The only way to do it is to do it. Yeah.
And the other thing that's really famous about that clip is she says, if you're the only one in the kitchen, just put it back in. Nobody's going to notice.
But nobody's going to see. And that's true.
Yeah.
And she scoops stuff up right off the stove and puts it back in the pan. It's great.
So Julia Child was born Julia McWilliams in 1912 in Pasadena, California. She is born to a fairly well-off family.
Why did I think she was French?
Well, we're getting there.
Okay.
Hold that thought.
Got it.
So she has a lot of privileges in her early life. She goes to a private school. She learns to speak French. She is very involved in athletics. But the problem for her is that she grows up and she is 6'2".
Oh my.
Yeah, she's a tall lady.
That is a very tall lady.
Very tall lady.
I do have several cousins that tall.
Yes.
But they all play basketball. They weren't professional
She
chefs.
actually was the captain of her high school basketball team.
Okay, then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then she's sent to college, Smith College in Massachusetts. And then after college, Allegra, this is going to just break your heart. She has to go take secretarial courses because she can't get a job. So she graduates from college, and then she gets to go take a secretary's job somewhere. I know, right? Doesn't that just break your heart?
So the skills she learned in college
We're not good enough.
but the typing skills.
Yes.
That's where women belonged. When was this?
1940.
Okay.
So that first job she got as a secretary, she actually got fired for insubordination.
Good for her.
Yeah. She felt like she wasn't wrong in a situation which her boss felt like she was wrong. And so they let her go.
I'm just going to assume she was right.
I think that's safe.
I don't have any of the details.
No, I'm going to go with you. So in 1941, we're getting into World War II here. She's going to volunteer for the Red Cross.
Nice.
And she tries to go for the WAVES and the WACs. The WAVES is the Women Accepted for Volunteer Emergency Service, and the WACs would be Women's Army Corps. But both rejected her due to her height.
Are you kidding?
No.
She's too tall.
She's too tall to serve her country.
As a volunteer or in the Army Corps?
Yes.
Too tall?
Yes.
Okay.
So in then 1942...
Is that still a rule? We don't know. We'll
I
find
don't
out.
think so.
Okay.
The OSS starts. Now the OSS...
Nobody knows what that is.
I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
It's our pre-CIA.
Okay.
So we don't have a spy service. This is our first one.
Oh.
In Washington, D.C., they called this the Oh-So-Social.
Why?
Because they only recruited from the most elite families,
Oh.
from kids who went to Brown, Yale, Princeton, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And the idea there was if you recruited rich people, they couldn't be corrupted. Poor people can't be spies, Allegra.
Oh, because poor people
Can be bribed.
would do anything for money.
Yes.
And I feel like the reverse is true. Rich people probably
Can also be corrupted.
have
Mhm.
already proven that they would do anything for money. But okay, so that's the logic at the time.
So she's going to apply to work at the OSS. And one of the reasons that this is so interesting to me is this is our first paramilitary agency in the United States that's actively recruiting women. And they're recruiting women to be spies.
Are you about to tell me Julia Child was a spy?
I wish I could tell you that, but she was too tall to be a spy. She stands out.
Are you kidding
Well,
me?
but this one makes sense.
Okay, sure. Everybody would remember the tall
Yes,
lady.
yes.
Got it. Okay.
So she can't be a spy. Actually, in her interview notes, good impression, pleasant, alert, capable, very tall. That's what it says in her interview packet for the OSS. Her height is really working against her here.
Okay.
But she is hired. She's going to work directly for the OSS director, Wild Bill Donovan.
Did he literally go by Wild Bill, or did you
William.
just make that up?
No, his nickname in Washington, D.C. is Wild Bill.
Okay, so
I
we're
would
not-
not make that up.
We're not making up Wild
No,
Bill nicknames.
I'm
for
not
people.
giving people nicknames.
Okay, good. I'm going to.
Okay, awesome. She was going to work for him as a secretary, which she did. She's very effective in that role. Part of her job was to keep track of all of the different spies and what their names were, what their missions were, their codes, all of the communication going in and out of the office. Very, very big job.
Mm-hmm.
So for a woman to be doing that in 1942, big deal. She also made a recipe
Oh, God.
for shark repellent.
Like from Batman?
Maybe?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Because we had these...
I just love how we have opposite knowledges that sometimes meet in the middle.
So we had all these bombs, like floating bombs, to hit the German U-boats, but sharks kept sniffing around them because they were curious, and we kept blowing up a bunch of sharks and like no Nazis. So she makes a shark repellent, helps make a shark repellent, and now we can blow up Nazis. Isn't that great?
So we are repelling sharks.
With a recipe, because she's going to be a cook in a minute.
Okay.
From 1944 to 1945, she's going to be stationed in India and China. And this is where she's going to meet her husband, Paul Child.
Is he also tall?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
I don't know very much about Paul Child because I'm not interested in him at all.
Not that he would have to be. But
No, not at all. So they're married in September of 1946. And I love this. Her wedding pictures, she's all bandaged up.
What? Why?
They got in a really bad car wreck
Oh,
right before her wedding, but she was still going to go forward with it.
my goodness.
Yeah. So she's still in these wedding pictures, but wearing her bandages.
Ugh.
So he gets stationed in France in 1946.
Okay.
And so, 1948. And she's going to follow him there. And she talks a lot about this in her memoirs. Their first meal in France. She's very impressed, but also a little taken aback. It's lunch. They're eating lunch.
Okay.
And do you know what they served her?
Something with butter, I assume.
They served wine.
At
with
lunch. In the 40s?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's France. It's Paris.
Scandalous.
Yes. And so she is just taken aback by this meal, but then also how much she enjoys it.
Because of the butter?
Because of the butter and the wine.
Okay.
Wine's going to be a big thing with her. So he is working a lot. He's still involved in the OSS, and she needs a hobby. She needs something to do.
Why can't she work?
Well, she could have, but they have scaled back on the OSS because we're not in the war anymore.
I see.
So she chose not to.
Got it.
So she is going to attend the Cordon Bleu, which is a pretty famous French culinary school.
Okay.
You've heard of it?
I think so.
Okay. And as she starts attending there, it really kind of began as a hobby, but she really found a love and a passion for it.
Okay.
So it's going to take her 10 years of cooking and researching, but then she's going to publish Mastering the Art of French Cooking.
So she's living in France because of her husband.
Yes.
And while she's there, she learns French cooking.
Yes.
And then publishes...
Mastering the Art of French Cooking.
10 years.
10 years.
So she really spent a lot of time mastering this art.
She really did.
Okay.
And like I said, this is her passion. This is her thing that she becomes very invested in. And then they return to the United States. And they're going to settle down in Cambridge, Massachusetts. When they get back to Cambridge, she's going to start a weekly newspaper column on cooking and kind of giving advice. That was a really common thing in the 60s. I don't know if you're aware of this. But in Texas, we had Ask Heloise. And it was like, I want to cook this. What do I need to do? Or... I need to get this stain out. What do I do?
Oh, pre-internet days.
Yes. You actually had to wait for somebody to answer you in the newspaper. You can just Google it. And because that column becomes popular, she's approached by what's going to be PBS, WGBH in Boston, to do a cooking show.
Oh.
And we're going to call this The French Chef.
Even though she's not French.
But she's cooking French food.
That's why I thought she was French.
Yeah.
She's on The French Chef.
The French Chef,
okay.
Yes. So she shows up, and... this is not like cooking shows today. It's 30 minutes long. There are no commercial breaks. You don't have time to like pre-prepare food and like you open the oven and it's done. She's literally making everything on air live.
Wow.
Yeah. So mistakes happen.
Yeah.
The potato falls out of the pan. You drop the chicken. Just put it back. Wash it off. Move on. And she has to have this really like easygoing personality because things happen. There's one famous episode where she's talking about making a meal for her husband, and she ends up burning the whole thing.
Oh, really?
And she talks about he likes that. He likes a little black char on his food. So very fun. And she also was drinking wine while she's making this food.
On TV.
Now, it wasn't really wine, but she was showing people that you should enjoy wine with your food. That's part of French cooking, pairing of things.
Okay.
It wasn't actually wine. So for the French Chef, it's going to run for 10 years. She wins a Peabody and an Emmy.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know that before we did this research.
For a cooking show.
For a cooking show.
Okay.
So this makes her famous. She becomes world renowned. Everyone knows who, and she stands out, right? She's 6'2". She walks in a room, you know who it is.
Also that voice.
Yes.
It's very remarkable.
Distinctive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she starts touring really famous kitchens. She's invited to have meals by a lot of really famous chefs. And one of the things I admire is every time she would go tour these kitchens, she would always ask, where are the women?
Oh.
Why aren't you hiring women in your kitchen too?
That's interesting.
Yeah, because she's making this show for women, right? For housewives mostly. But then when she gets to the high-level kitchens, there's no women.
So women can be home, what do they call them? Home cooks, but not
professional.
Not professional.
And to Julia Child, there's no difference.
Well, yeah. I mean, there literally was no difference, right?
Right. So as time goes on, she's going to continue various online cooking shows. She eventually co-founds the American Institute of Wine and Food. I know, right? We need to take a research trip. She's also going to co-found the Julia Child Foundation.
Okay.
And she gives several honors throughout her life. She has several honorary PhDs. She's the first woman inducted into the Culinary Institute of America's Hall of Fame, which, I'm sorry, how was she not already inducted by 1993?
That was 1993.
Yeah, that should have been way earlier.
The Culinary Institute of America's Hall of Fame.
How many people can be in that if you didn't have Julia Child?
I don't know. Gordon Ramsay, Emeril. Those
are for sure Emeril.
And that's all I know.
The guy that used to go, bam. That's Emeril, right?
That's Emeril. Yeah.
So 1996, she's going to win a book award. She is going to be named Smith's College Remarkable Woman of the Year, 2003. And she's also going to get the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2003.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, by George W. Bush.
Okay.
Which is interesting because she's a lifelong Democrat.
Well, you know, some things like wine and food transcend politics.
They do. So after her death in 2004, her whole kitchen, the whole thing, was donated to the Smithsonian National Museum.
The whole thing.
The kitchen, her whole kitchen
They
was
cut the room out of the house.
Yes, they donated her kitchen.
Wow.
So if you go to the Smithsonian National Museum, you can go stand in Julia Child's kitchen. That's kind of cool, right?
They cut the room out of the house? I'm still on this.
I don't know how they did it. I'm amazed. Maybe it's a replica. I don't know. But her kitchen was donated. I know that.
Okay, Misty, tell me, do you think, on the whole,
Okay.
that Julia Child was, we can either say a positive role model or a positive social influence for women?
I think she was both.
You think she
Was both a role model, and she was also a social influence that was positive for women.
Okay.
So if we look at her early career,
Mm-hmm.
she has the courage of her convictions.
That's true, she did.
She's brave. She's patriotic. She's serving her country, even though she's rejected time and time again because of her height. She is technically not a producer in her programs, but she kind of was a producer. She told them what she was going to make and how she wanted to do it, very involved in the planning.
Okay.
She's one of the first women in America to have her own cooking show.
Really?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
And she told women to advocate for themselves.
Really?
So if she's making this dish and she's all about fresh ingredients, right? And you don't get those fresh ingredients at your store, she would tell them, go talk to the store manager. Tell him you want fresh ingredients. Tell him that you want to make this and you need this, this, and this.
Interesting.
So she's telling women, advocate for yourself, even if it's just in cooking. Make your voice heard. And I admire that. I think that's really important.
I do too. I love the clip that you chose, because not just the courage of your convictions, but again, you know, just do it and you'll learn how to do it. And so,
and if you mess up, who cares?
Yeah. So people who are not confident can feel a lot better about what they're doing. I think that in and of itself, I think, is a positive influence. So, Misty, big question.
Yes.
Was Julia Child a feminist?
I would say yes.
Okay.
But I don't know if she herself would have used that term.
Why not?
I don't know if it was in her vocabulary to do that.
Okay.
But she actually pushed men and women to succeed. She brings up a lot of people with her. She says that gender shouldn't be a barrier. So those are things feminists believe, right?
Yes.
I just don't know if she adopted that term in her lifetime. And again, Julia Child, I said she was a lifelong Democrat, but she wasn't overtly political. So she's not going to enter the fray on those conversations very often. It's pretty rare that she did.
Okay. All right. So next we're going to talk about Martha Stewart, who you are less enthusiastic about.
Yes.
Okay, so first I'm going to start with just a clip of what we would say standard Martha Stewart TV show, what she was doing.
Okay.
Well, today we're updating a family classic. Mom's here, and I decided this weekend, Mom, to make delicious macaroni and cheese your way. And the great thing about macaroni and cheese, and everyone around here calls it mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese? Really?
And there's so many different ways to make it. We have Macaroni and Cheese 101 from the magazine, which is delicious, rather elaborate. This is a simplified version. And Mom,
rather elaborate mac and cheese 101. Okay. So here's some things you probably didn't know about Martha Stewart.
I know basically nothing other than that she went to jail.
She went to prison.
Prison. Sorry. Let me get my terms correct. She didn't go to jail.
I mean, at some point she was probably in a jail, but she went to prison. She's the first self-made female billionaire. Did you know that?
I didn't, and that's important.
Okay. She helped emphasize and popularize DIY.
Do it yourself?
Do it yourself. Yes. So instead of buying pre-made everything, putting things together, I mean, the joke about Martha Stewart is that she could like glue 2 popsicle sticks together and cover them in glitter, and then she's got a glorious tablescape. She's CEO and a chairwoman for an Omni Media company, Martha Stewart Living Omni Media.
What is Omni Media?
Well, you know, omni, like omniscient.
So she's watching us right now.
All media, right? Publishing.
Martha sees you when you sleep.
Probably. Books, magazines, internet, broadcast TV, merchandise, radio programming, Omni, all of the medias. Martha Stewart is everywhere, from Kmart to Macy's, literally.
Interesting.
So, yeah. She was born in 1941, so she was born about the time that Julia Child was making her way.
Shark repellent.
Yeah, making her shark repellent. She got married in 1961. She graduated from Barnard College in 63. She had a daughter in 65, so she's bam, bam, bam.
Allegra, do you know what you're doing?
What?
You're doing history.
No.
Yay. All right, let's keep going.
Okay. She became a stockbroker. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
She was a stockbroker in 1967. A few years later, she started her own catering business out of her house.
Okay. So entrepreneurial?
Yeah, and about 5 years later, she published a book called Entertaining. It was a book on, unfortunately, homemaking. But it's called Entertaining. It was very successful. It sold 625,000 copies in 1982. That's the year I was born. In 1987, this is a bit of scandal for Martha Stewart's life. Her husband left her to go live with her former assistant.
Ooh.
Yeah, and that divorce got final in 1990. While all of that was happening, she's signing a deal with Kmart to develop stylish but affordable decor and merchandise. So Martha Stewart sheets and pillows and pillowcases. It's funny
because when I think Martha Stewart, I don't think affordable.
Yeah. And she was very, very passionate about it being affordable. And
that's nice.
And she...
So not just for the elites.
Right, exactly. And so she made it... I mean, it wasn't... They're not the world's fanciest sheets because they had to sell at a certain price point, but they looked really nice. They were in designer colors. Her magazine, Martha Stewart Living, started in 1990, still being published now, so that's a long-running magazine. At its height in 2002, I think it was selling like 2 million episodes. 2 million
episodes.
2 million copies per issue. And she started the trend of putting herself on the cover of her own magazine every month.
And I can assume we're going to talk about that later with somebody else as well.
But other people, including Rachael Ray, who, if we were going to put 4 people on this episode, Rachael Ray would have to be the 4th. Rachael Ray also does that. So does Oprah. So she starts her TV show in 1993, and that's the show we just played a clip from. She's got some of her very iconic phrases. That's a good thing. And she invents this word, which is tablescape.
Landscape on a table?
Well, yeah, the way you decorate the whole table. So the way you arrange the centerpieces and the cups and the glasses and the lighting. So it's a tablescape.
Wow.
That's a word she came up with.
So it's like an art form for her.
Yeah, absolutely. But then she starts going on TV shows. So she's on the Ellen show, the sitcom Ellen show.
Oh, okay.
And
not like Ellen Today, Ellen.
No, not the talk show. Yeah, when Ellen had a sitcom. And she played Martha Stewart. She guest starred on a lot of TV shows. She gets parodied on SNL.
Yes, I've seen those.
In fact, Julia Child also famously parodied on SNL, and of course Oprah as well. And so this is a time when the 90s is when she's like a household name. She's a big part of our culture. She's somebody that everybody's familiar with, and when we start making all the jokes about her being kind of...
So it's interesting to me that she was kind of famous before she even went on TV, where Julia Child, it was sort of the other way around, right? Her show made her famous. Yeah. This is like the reverse order.
Yeah, and it's great because it literally started this from a catering company in her house. So 1997 is when she formed Omni Media, Martha Stewart Living Omni Media.
It sounds very sinister. I know it doesn't mean to, but it does.
I know.
Dun, dun, dun.
So it went public in 1999, and that's when she it made her an instant billionaire.
I bet her husband was not happy about the ex-husband. Was not happy about that.
Left her to live with the former assistant. I can only imagine she laughs every time she thinks about him. So as you know, in 2004, she went to prison. Do you know what she went to prison for?
I do.
What'd she go to prison for?
Insider trading.
Insider trading. So actually, I think she went to prison for lying about insider trading. But
Oh, okay.
she's off the board of her company. Her show goes into indefinite hiatus. Her company's stock goes up
While she's in prison.
while she's in prison.
Interesting.
And while she's in prison, her TV show is nominated for several Emmys.
do they broadcast it live from the prison?
No, but the show that had already previously aired. So she's no longer doing her show, but the episodes that had previously aired were nominated for Emmys while she's in prison. So her personal stock, right, the metaphorical
Yes.
personal stock, is not tanking the way that you might expect it to.
So my mom is not a super creative person.
Okay.
But in 2004, she had to go to a Halloween party at her job, and she went as prison Martha Stewart. And she got some handcuffs and put like decorative flowers on them and some glitter.
You know, Martha Stewart did crafts in prison.
Really?
She did ceramics.
Oh, okay.
And she was in charge, I believe, of waxing the floor, which...
Okay. Makes sense.
So, anyway, so she starts her daytime TV show not long after she gets out of prison. And in fact, on the very first episode of her TV show, which was just called Martha, and it came on during the day, kind of like Oprah did.
And Julia Child.
The first episode, she showed off her ankle because she was no longer on house arrest.
You know, it's interesting that she goes on television for a daily show the year that Julia Child died.
That is interesting.
So it's almost like there's this vacuum that needs to be filled.
And Martha steps up.
Yes.
Okay.
With her ankle bracelet.
Yeah, and she says, I'm unfettered, and she shows everyone her ankle that has no ankle monitor on it. And that show's on for over 1,000 episodes, 7 seasons.
I did not know it was that long.
Yeah. I mean, it was daily, so 7 seasons is 1,000 episodes.
Wow.
She isn't, you know, she has new books all the time. In 2005, she released a new book that was about starting and managing your own business. So it wasn't about cooking, it wasn't about homemaking. It was about running a business as a CEO and executive. And so then she has deals with Macy's. She has a TV deal with Hallmark in 2010. So she starts to become a personality. And she starts also to become a celebrity.
Would you not say that she was a celebrity before that?
Yes, but she becomes she starts acting. So she appears on TV shows not as Martha Stewart, but as a character. So she acts on some iteration of Law and Order, either either regular or SV. I think it's SVU. And she is on the roast of Justin Bieber, which I know what you're thinking. Like, what is?
Oh man,
what is happening with that? But I'm gonna play you a clip, and honestly, this is like the only clip from the roast that can be played by us, because Martha Stewart makes dirty jokes. All right, here's a clip.
I know you're all wondering why I'm here tonight. It's because Martha Stewart changes people's lives for the better. Like Shaq, for instance. When Shaq bought his house, Shaq, are you listening? I was the first person he called. The house had 13 bedrooms, and I helped convert 8 of them into refrigerators. I believe...
You know, it's funny because I don't think of Martha Stewart as being, like, funny.
She is funny.
But that was funny.
Yeah. I mean, she's mostly very Martha Stewart, the way we heard her in the first clip. Like, we're going to make mac and cheese, and it's very elaborate. But she is funny. And then in 2016... she starts a TV show with Snoop Dogg.
I think I knew that. And it's very weird.
But it's also been nominated for Emmys.
That's very strange.
What's great is...
I just wouldn't put those two together. They seem very different.
That's why they're great together.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's why the juxtaposition is hilarious. Because she's very... I don't want to say she's uptight, because you just heard her making a joke about Shaq needing 20 refrigerators in his house, but she's a relatively straight-laced person, right? She looks like she's from Connecticut, and I think she lives there. And then, you know, Snoop Dogg has a different... She
does look like she's from Connecticut.
I don't know what that means, but I know that it's true. He's a very chill California looking dude. So the juxtaposition of them is to get together is funny. They have lots of great moments. Seth Rogen comes on their show sometimes. So yeah, it's a good show.
So this was your person that you did a lot of research on. I'm going to ask you the same question.
Okay.
Is Martha Stewart a positive role model or a positive or negative social influencer for women?
This is a more complicated answer.
Yes.
Because she did go to prison.
Yes. Julia Child did not go to prison.
She did not.
She went to war.
So I will say this. She came from working class parents, and she built an empire.
It's admirable.
Around her strengths and passions. So she didn't do this to make money. She did this because these are things that she was good at and cared about. I mean, her parents taught her to cook and sew and garden by necessity mostly. And so these were things that she was interested in. She made lots of smart decisions. I mean, mostly. Obviously, she made some bad decisions. But even she got arrested and she rebounded from defeat.
That's true, because it sounds like her career is almost, if not maybe even more strong than it was before she went to prison.
I would say. And it gave her some street cred. I'm just kidding. So she's made progress with the times. So she talks about things being affordable. She talks about, being more inclusive. And she's been honest about a lot of things. Most famously, she made women's work into work. And
what do you mean by that, work?
That's her job. It's her profession. It's her career. And there are lots of other women who have done that. I mean,
right. Mm-hmm.
People who are professional YouTube video makers who show you how to make things. So now, is crafting and tablescaping what modern women should be doing with their time? That's the criticism against Martha Stewart being called progressive or positive role model. Shouldn't Martha Stewart spend her time influencing women to do things other than tablescaping? Well, what do you always say, Misty?
It's about choice.
It's about choice. Mm-hmm. So if a woman wants to be crafty, wants to be DIY, wants to cook a turkey, wants to make complicated macaroni and cheese, then Martha is going to give her advice on how to do it and how to do it well.
Well, and I think that's not all Martha was doing, right? She was tablescaping, but she was also building an empire.
Yeah.
So to say that she was only doing that kind of devalues what she was doing.
And there are loads of women who want advice on how to do those things, either because they are people who do that every day, or because they're people like me or you who never do it, and then we might have a special occasion and we have no idea what we're doing.
Exactly.
And we need, so she's going to show us not just how to do it, but how to do it start to finish all ourselves. She also did a lot of recycling. She also talked a lot about composting. She made things accessible to different income levels.
See, and I didn't know that before you did this. So I think that's super interesting, that she's aware of class issues. Mm-hmm. I think that's, because when I think of Martha Stewart and having the time to tablescape, I mean, that is kind of a limited group of people, right?
Yeah,
but when you're talking about her having an affordable line of sheets and towels and all that, it means she's aware of those issues and she's not ignoring them.
Right, and she is not going to let people make fun of them. So I want to play a clip from David Letterman. And David Letterman tries to make fun of her having goods at Kmart.
Hi. Nice to see you. How are you? Fine. Welcome to the show. Martha, we see a lot of you on television these days with these Kmart commercials. You have an affiliation with Kmart.
I do.
Now, I think a lot of people would think that that's an odd kind of combination. Does it strike you as being odd?
Not at all.
Really?
I'm enjoying it tremendously.
And what's the purpose of it?
Well, the purpose is that everybody who shops at Kmart, and there's about 77 million people a month shopping there.
Is that right? 77 million a month?
Yes, and they want beautiful things. And I'm trying to get really gorgeous things into the store.
Well, what are they doing in Kmart if they're... You know what I'm saying?
What's what? You mean
I have nothing against Kmart
the beautiful things?
But
or
if they in fact are looking for beautiful things, then let's face it, who isn't?
That's what I say.
But now so it will be the place to go for beautiful things.
It certainly is the place.
Okay. Really? Have you ever been in a Kmart?
Have you seen my sheets?
So he's trying to make a joke here, right? Like, why would you be looking for beautiful things in a Kmart? And she's like, everybody's looking for beautiful things, right? So yeah, she's aware of it. She responds to it, and she tries to be inclusive.
So is she a feminist?
Also a troubling answer. So somebody asked her that question, and her response was, and this is a direct quote, "Do we really need to waste time saying I'm a feminist?"
That's very third wave.
Yeah. And then she said, "I never thought about glass ceilings. I never thought about glass floors." Which, why would you think about glass floors? I was thinking about how many pies I can come up with for my pie and tarts book. Those are all original ideas. So I feel like that's a feminist answer, right? Like, I'm thinking of new ideas. I'm not just writing a cookbook, but these are all original ideas that I'm coming up with and creating. And
well,
so
it's dodging the question is what it is.
Yeah, it is. Because
there's that PR issue that we've talked about before.
So the
if
word
you
can alienate people.
Yeah, if you openly say I'm a feminist, you're going to lose half your audience. And let's be clear, more than a feminist, she's a capitalist.
That's true. And so that's like a post-feminist idea. You were talking about that before. She's a CEO, she's a mogul, she's a personality, she's a celebrity. She has built an empire. She's focused on her work. And she's sort of implying in that quote that it's an offensive question because you wouldn't be asking her anything about it. It wouldn't be remarkable if she were a man who built this empire.
Yes.
And the thing I like most about her is that she gives us permission to be interested in domestic concerns. So it's totally okay to want to learn how to make things out of glitter and snow globes.
But it's also okay to be a CEO and run $1 billion corporation.
Exactly. And to follow your passions into wherever they lead you.
Well, domestic things shouldn't be dismissed because they're domestic. There's value in women's work. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Absolutely.
So that brings us to our last one.
The ultimate queen of daytime.
Okay, and again, I am out of my depth here.
So we're going to talk about Oprah. We're going to not talk about the history of Oprah, mostly because it's very well known and we'd be here all day fast forwarding through it. But we'll just say she's the queen of all media in terms of a lot of things. She revolutionized the talk show. So Phil Donahue had a talk show. Oprah had a talk show. We're talking about early Oprah. So this is before her show was more about giving away free
When
things.
you're saying early Oprah, like 1990s?
80s.
1980s. Okay, all the way back.
Yeah. So her show later became more about celebrities and more about self-help and spirituality. But in the early days, it was a talk show. Like families came on and, oh, you had a missing sister, or whatever, things like that. And so it was a confessional situation. It's also really her show and Geraldo and Phil Donahue shows were the only time you ever saw gay and lesbian people or even trans people on TV.
Interesting.
Sometimes it was as a spectacle, which is problematic, but it's also the only time that, people in every part of America were exposed to people who were different than themselves.
So just the representation of.
Representation, yes. She's the first North American black multi-billionaire.
That's a very specific way to say that. Okay, got it.
She's one of the world's greatest philanthropists. She has 2 charities and she gives to lots of others. Successful, obviously influential. She started as a news reporter and a talk show host. Now she owns TV channels.
I didn't know she was a news reporter. That's interesting.
And she has O Magazine, which she's always on the cover of.
I knew that.
She has her own line of food.
Didn't know
which
that.
Our colleague was telling us about earlier. And then she was famous for having a favorite things episode every, I think, November, which is things that she was recommending that you buy for other people as Christmas gifts.
So also a good capitalist.
Famous, yeah, and of course these were all sponsorships, but things that she professed that she really did love. And it was often funny because a lot of her favorite things were astronomically expensive, but a lot of them were affordable as well. And then of course you know about her book club.
I do, and you know what? Anybody who encourages people to read, I'm supportive.
And she chose really meaningful books. She didn't just, she was not choosing the murder thriller suspense books, which is fine to read. I read all of those as well, but she was choosing literary books, right? She was choosing
and by a pretty diverse array of authors,
absolutely,
right?
More diverse array of authors than any English professor I was taking at the time. And so she created something called the Oprah effect, which is basically if Oprah says it on TV, then it's going to sell out.
So slapping that Oprah sticker is going to guarantee you a New York Times bestseller?
Yeah, and there's at least one author who I know of who didn't want to be on Oprah's
really?
book club. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that they were asked, honestly.
I don't know exactly how it worked, but I know that he did not want to be on Oprah's book club.
But he was anyway.
I think he ended up being, yes.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm going to play you the most famous Oprah clip there is.
Okay, I think I know what's coming.
Okay, everybody listen up. Here is the deal. If your box has a key, you will be the last person today to get one of those cute little G6s. Okay? Who will it be? Are you ready? Hold on. Are you ready? JR is back in our audio booth. I want, JR, this calls for a drum roll. Cue the drum roll. All right, open your boxes. Open your boxes. 1, 2, 3. You get a call. 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 Everybody gets a call.
So she gave everybody a car.
I got that.
You got a car?
No, I'm just saying
No.
I got the
Yeah,
meaning of it.
Everybody gets a car. But it was a nice moment.
Yes.
And she, when she had the favorite things episode, everybody in the audience got a bunch of those favorite things. And so she started to pack the audience. So like one year it was all teachers.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, she tried to do her best at balancing being good
With blatant capitalism.
with blatant capitalism. Absolutely. And so she's still on TV. She's still a media mogul.
Well, she has her own channel, right?
She does.
All Oprah all the time.
It's not all Oprah all the time. I think she's only got one show that's currently airing, which is Where Are They Now? And she just interviews people who were at one time on the Oprah show to see what they're doing now.
So, overall, is Oprah a positive role model? Good for the...
So overall, yes, absolutely. Okay. Positive role model. She is all about learning from mistakes, overcoming adversity, advocating for yourself, being strong. She raises up women. She supports women. She's famous for having a best female friend, and so she celebrates female friendships.
I hear a butt coming.
It's like a 10% butt.
Okay.
It's like a very small butt.
But
she contributes to diet culture, which is sort of anti-body positive. So she talks about her own weight, which is positive. She is honest about her own weight. And she is, in the 80s, was like the only non-traditionally body-typed person on TV, which was all positive. But then she talks all the time about being on a diet and wanting to be skinny and equating eating with badness. And it's not a clear line of good.
Well, I'm sure she was under a lot of pressure to have a certain body type when you're the only one on TV who isn't. So I can understand why she would have been talking about that quite a bit.
And she's responsible for some problematic people on TV. Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz. So she has many times embraced pseudoscience, and that's all that Dr. Oz is selling. When he was on her show, a lot of times it was just he had a great personality and he was a doctor, and so he would tell people, he had the thing I can remember is he would tell people like what their bowel movements were supposed to look like, and that was
I didn't know that's where we were going to go with this.
Well, so that's a key indicator of health. And so she wanted people to have information about their own health, but there were a lot of pseudoscience, magic berries and all that kind of stuff.
Magic berries.
I swear to God, there are magic berries, superfoods and all that stuff. That
See,
Dr.
I didn't know that Dr. Oz came from Oprah. I had no idea.
Dr. Oz came from Oprah, and so did Dr. Phil. And again, when he was on her show, he was just kind of giving folksy advice, common sense wisdoms.
I also didn't know he was a real doctor. You told me that earlier.
Yeah. Thanks, UNT. But yeah, I mean, he's okay. He's a little sensational. That's where the Cash Me Outside girl came from.
So is Oprah a feminist?
I'm going to play you another clip, and this is a very famous clip, of course, and this is the clip of Oprah at the Golden Globes.
In 1982, Sydney received the Cecil B. DeMille Award right here at the Golden Globes, and it is not lost on me that at this moment, there are some little girls watching as I become the first black woman to be given the same award. It is an honor.
So, talking about representation and acknowledging the impact that she has, and there's another part of her speech from the very end. Have you heard the speech?
I haven't, but I'm going to go listen to the whole thing later.
Yeah.
Can throw at you, but the one quality all of them seem to share is an ability to maintain hope for a brighter morning, even during our darkest nights. So I want all the girls watching here and now to know that a new day is on the horizon. And when that new day finally dawns, it will be because of a lot of magnificent women, many of whom are right here in this room tonight, and some pretty phenomenal men fighting hard to make sure that they become the leaders who take us to the time when nobody ever has to say, "Me too," again.
So that was, at the Golden Globes when Me Too Time's Up was happening, and well, it's still happening, but they
when it first kind of came out.
Yeah, and they all dressed in black as a representation. So she gave that message to all the girls watching. So I think she is a feminist. I couldn't find a record of somebody asking her and her giving a direct answer to that question. But if you just Google Oprah feminism, all you get is that video, the Golden Globe speech, as like the first 200 results.
So what has been interesting to me about these three women is that they're performing essentially in public these domestic roles and activities, which we kind of devalue.
We do.
But yet they're famous for these things. They reach the pinnacle of their careers from these things that we think of as only tablescaping or only cooking.
Or only, gossiping or only...
Yeah. So it's really interesting to me that while we can devalue it, we can also elevate it in society. And it's also interesting to me that these three women are very aware of the fact that they are women.
Yes.
And they're telling other women, advocate for yourself. Even if it's just like, I need fresh parsley.
I need fresh parsley to I need a safe place to live and work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So lots to admire here.
Absolutely. So have I changed your mind about Martha Stewart?
I think you have, because I think mostly I was just ignorant of a lot of her life.
Yeah.
I think sometimes she just looks kind of stern.
She does.
I feel like she would judge my tablescaping.
She would not.
And that's good to know.
In my opinion, she would find something about it to compliment.
Oh, she would do the compliment sandwich.
I think she would only give you advice if you asked for it.
Okay.
So I don't think she would come into your house and
Start
run her finger
judging.
across the hearth and be like, "No, it's dusty."
So, Allegra, what's next in your lady life?
I think I'm going to try to cook something.
Ooh, I'm proud of you.
Yeah. And I feel, I'm not being cheesy. I feel like if I fail, it's still okay.
Yeah, Julia Child has inspired you to have courage.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's going to be elaborate, and I don't know that it's going to be French.
But that you start where you start.
Yeah, absolutely. What's next in your lady life, Missy?
Apparently, I need to go watch this whole speech that Oprah gave, because I missed it.
It's a great speech.
I need to watch more TV, I think.
No one would disagree with you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Profess Hers, our podcast about seeing movies, culture, and history through our lady eyes. I'm Misty, And I'm sort of okay at cooking.
I'm Allegra, and I'm Googling recipes right now. We'd love to hear from you, what you thought about today's episode, what you'd like to discuss in future episodes, or how great you think we are.
To connect with us, you can follow us on Twitter at ProfessHers. That's at ProfessHers, or by email at the same address, professhers@gmail.com.
We hope you recommend our podcast to a friend. Check out other podcasts from TC Connect faculty. Our podcast is written by Misty and me and engineered and produced by Austin Haynes and Scott January. And remember,
a woman's place is in the House and the Senate.